On this channel, we are all about questioning everything and everyone, including ourselves, up to a point where sometimes I upset some people on our own side. It's not just when I attack the left, but I've criticised Boris Johnson's policies, and some Boris fans criticise me. I've criticised both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, but I am doing it because we need to promote conservative values. We need to make sure that we hold them to account. And this leadership election is all about the battle of ideas at this point. Liz Truss is we're trying hard to prove her conservative credentials, especially considering that she used to be a Lib Dem member when she was younger. Now, some of the things that are a priority for me personally is government overreach, the size of the state when it comes to nanny state, when it comes to overreach on the public health policies like lockdown and restrictions, but also just draining the swamp of the establishment and overall all these the woke culture battles that continues to take over. Now, Liz Truss, yesterday, last night, kind of impressed me on all these issues. She covered all of them. And she said, for example, that she's announcing that she will scrap the diversity and inclusion jobs in Whitehall, making sure the civil service officials actually start to focus on delivery. Now, we have heard this before from Boris Johnson's government, from Sajid Javid. Some of it was done. Not all of it was done. We're still seeing police cars going around with the rainbow and unicorns all over them. We're still seeing some diversity trainings in Whitehall. So if she does it, then perfect. But I'll believe it when I see it. So far, I'm not going to be completely rejecting it. So I'm going to be supportive until if she doesn't do it, then we will completely criticize the system as usual. Liz Truss has also come out to say she will stop the junk food tax and the nanny state. This is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the crucial things and one of the most disappointing things that I saw in Boris Johnson and his government, because he stood on a platform in 2019 to become Tory party leader, and he mentioned this. Now, it makes sense because if you look back, and there are footages actually on this channel as well, when Boris Johnson was speaking out against the nanny state at the time, the reason that those promises were never actually achieved or delivered was because they were never actually promises. I remember there was, again, it's on the channel, you can find it. He was interviewed once when he was a Tory candidate in 2019, and he didn't actually give a proper policy. He just said, "Oh yeah, I don't like this the nanny state on junk food tax and all this stuff. It's nonsensical. We should look into it." But there was no detailed policy. So technically speaking, there was never a proper promise. It was just wishy-washy rhetoric that made a lot of people to fall for it. I fell for it, right? So we all did. But when it comes to lockdown, for example, Liz Truss was asked whether she actually agreed with the whole of the system and whether she would do it again. This is what she said.
Can I just ask you if you would ever authorise another lockdown?
No, I wouldn't.
Do you regret any of your support for the 3 lockdowns within government? Because, of course, there's been many policy areas that you were part of the government at, the national insurance rise, for example, which you've now come out against. So, privately, do you think lockdown was a bad idea?
Firstly, that was a great answer. No. I wouldn't do it, in the words of Margaret Thatcher. But the question is also very important. This is what she had to say.
Every single chance I was given the opportunity to express a view, I was on the favour of doing less rather than more on lockdowns and opening up the economy earlier. The fact is I wasn't part of the key COVID committee. I was the International Trade Secretary. I was spending my time trying to get all these trade deals done. I wasn't really a core part of that COVID decision making.
I mean, that's fair enough. But again, all this stuff is finally coming out over the last few months about the backlash, about all the criticisms, and we're still waiting for a proper inquiry into the whole thing. So hopefully someone could push someone, Liz Truss, to actually do it as the new leader and prime minister. But she was, again, also standing up against the battle of the woke culture and all this culture nonsense and everything else that's been infiltrated by the Marxists and the hard left. And it's nothing new. They've been planning this since the 50s and 60s onwards. They infiltrated all the areas. And again, she said, well, it's time to actually stop that. And it's time to stand up for the values of Britain.
But as well as freedom and democracy abroad, we need it here at home. And I'm a straight-talking Yorkshire woman. I know a woman is a woman. You know, you might laugh, but that's become a controversial statement in some parts of Britain today. I will protect single-sex spaces, such as domestic violence shelter, and I will make sure that we stand up for the United Kingdom, and we're proud of our history. Not just standing up for it overseas, but also rejecting the naysayers and declinists who say that our country's best days are behind us. They're not. Our best days are in front of it, and that is what I will deliver as your Prime Minister.
I mean, this is what we needed. Again, we're not going to just completely go with blind faith, and we have to question everything as usual. We will believe it when we see it. But we needed some sort of positivity. We needed some sort of optimism at this point. And the two things that I really enjoyed what she said, one was about being proud of our history, our heritage, because there's a chunk of people in society who want to erase British history, and we need to stand up against it. And the whole concept of it's embarrassing how it's become a controversial topic, an issue, to say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. How is that controversial? What is going on in 2022? If you were to ask people from decades ago, what do you think is going to happen in the future? We say, well, there have been actual interviews about that from decades ago. A lot of kids were saying, and they were rightly so, predicting that the technology will take over and society will become slightly less human. But they wouldn't have thought that we would still be stuck in these debates. They probably would have thought that we would also be prosperous and more educated and more civilized. Now, not if you go to Portland or New York or San Francisco or parts of London, for that matter, it's not really that safe or civilized. But it is what it is when you open the door to multiculturalism and mass migration and completely destroy your own identity as a country. We have to fight against that, and we are doing it on this channel with your support. So thanks again for all the support, all the likes and comments. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Tousi, and we are the media.